Amazing. Here we go. Hello, bonjour, Annie, hola. My name is Garrett Ryan. I am with Artist Relations here at Fringe North this season. And I am super happy to be back here once again on our Fringe North Artists Roundtable, which we are doing every Thursday evening until the festival begins on August 16th. I am super happy to be joined here today by Taylor, and we're going to be chatting a little bit about some indie theater and things of that nature. Thanks for being here, Taylor.
Thanks for having me. That's great.
Yeah. Um, First things first. Well, actually, first things first. Congratulations, because you opened your show that you'll be bringing to Fringe North at Toronto Fringe yesterday.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's open. It's happening. We have a
Amazing.
play. Yeah, it feels
That's so
good.
exciting. And I heard so your first show was sold out and things are looking good.
Yeah, there were people there, it felt really good. It felt like
Amazing.
a really good start to things. And yeah, even got a couple of reviews, which is nice. So yeah,
That's
no,
so
feeling
cool.
feeling good today for sure.
Congratulations. Amazing.
Thanks. Thanks.
Uh so on that subject, why don't you talk a little bit about that show? When you bring it to us in the Sioux, what can audiences expect to see?
Well, maybe I'll like take you back in time for a little
Please,
bit.
yeah.
Last summer, okay, I had this really incredible opportunity. I was a playwright in residence at the Life Art Centre in Caithness, Scotland. So in this like northern spot in Scotland. And it was amazing. And I was there for a month and I was writing away and felt really good. I was working on a different play. And I came home and I realized that I had a really horrible case of writer's block. I couldn't keep going. I just like kind of lost the magic that I had in Scotland. So a friend told me about this program that's run by Flush Inc. Performing Arts in Kitchener. Okay, and you go and they take you to a creepy place for 22 hours and you try to write something, you try to write a play. And I'm like, you know what? That sounds like a great
Cool.
way to get out of my own head. And so, yeah, I showed up at this, woman's house and she drove me out to St. Jacobs, Ontario. Didn't tell me where I was going. It was very scary. And she took me to this old factory. And so I stayed for 22 hours in this old factory. And the first thing I imagined were two teenagers breaking in. And that's sort of where I started. I just kind of started from there and wrote the rest of Corporate Fringe from that. So that's really what like the genesis, I guess, of the play.
That's very cool. I think I've heard of that program, but I've never actually spoken to anyone who's done it before. That's very interesting. So
Yeah.
what was it? Were you there the whole like what did that look like? Like a little bit to go a little bit deeper into that. I'm just so curious about that.
Yeah, it was this old factory that was being converted into art studios. And
Cool.
so it was like under construction. And I just went in there and I don't know, I just sort of started to kind of imagine a really site
Mm,
specific, like something really like that engages with the idea of that factory. And yeah, I don't know. I really kind of creeped myself out
yeah.
as I was writing. But it was really nice because I only had that 22 hours, so I couldn't overthink anything. I just had to get something out, right? And
Yeah.
so it was really kind of nice. I'm like, okay, I have to finish something in this amount of time. That's all
Mm,
that matters, you know? And then they ended up producing it last December.
cool.
Yeah, it was very cool. Yeah. And so I ended up directing it and found these two incredible collaborators that I ended up working with, these like fabulous human beings, Rainbow Kester and Matthew Ivanoff. They're just like the best. I love them so
So
much. They're
great.
so talented. And yeah, so we did a kind of a workshop production with Unhinged and like Flushing, that's the festival, it's called
Yep.
Unhinged. And then so this summer we're we're now at the Toronto Fringe. It's happening.
Yeah.
And then Here for Now in Stratford. So the Here for Now festival, which I love. I've worked with them before and I just love that festival so much. It's like this outdoor festival where there's this big, beautiful tent and you just kind of can, I don't know, it's really bare bones in the best way. I love it. Yeah. And then I'm gonna make my way up to you.
Yeah, amazing. I I'm not really familiar with the Stratford Festival. Does it function similar to a Fringe, or is it like how does it work getting into the festival and getting involved with it?
Yeah, so Here for Now is a curated festival. I actually have another show there this summer. It's kind of funny to me. I have a children's opera premiere this
Oh,
summer with Here for Now and this very creepy one act
yeah,
play. It's like,
that's great.
okay, that's me in a nutshell, I guess, those
Yeah,
two sides of myself. So yeah, they that's going for like a 3 week run. And then what they're doing is they're doing a limited engagement series this year. So right now they have a show up that's part of that, and then Corporate Finch is going to be part of that. So yeah, really like very lucky to have their support and to let us join in on that festival because it's really awesome. It's a really,
yeah,
really cool festival.
that's awesome. Yeah, congratulations. That's congratulations
Thanks.
on both things being involved there. That's so cool.
Thank you. Thanks.
Um, and it sounds like just in this time frame, I mean, going back to the residency in Scotland and everything, like you've been doing so many amazing things. I'd love to rewind a little bit and hear some about your journey to get to this place. Uh,
Sure, sure,
yeah,
Garrett. What would you like to know?
everything. Give me an all. No, where, I guess, where did you get started? Like, where did this journey into creating art and theater begin?
I mean, I've always been a bit of a writer, I guess. I grew up in Huron County, in this town of like 200 people, and I spent a lot of my time, reading and writing. I had sort of two different notebooks. I had one that was when I am a famous writer, I had written on the front,
Oh, I
and
love
the
it.
other, and the other was when I am a teacher. So my mom was a teacher, and I wanted to be a teacher, and so I'm really lucky that I get to do both of those things. And but yeah, so I don't know. I went to York University in Toronto for theater there. I was in the playwriting program, which you were also in that
I
program, right,
was,
Garrett?
yes.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. And so, yeah, it was great. And while I was there, I was really lucky to get some professional opportunities like before I graduated. So, kind of how I got into opera. So, I ended up working with Tapestry New Opera Works, which is
Oh,
this incredible company downtown, and they produced four like 5 minute operas of mine and then a longer opera at Harborfront. And so the guy that I was working with, my composer, we're still working together, and that's why I had this other opera going on now, which has taken like 10 years to put together. Takes a while to write operas.
I have
And
no idea. The world of writing operas is so alien to me. That's so cool, though.
thank you. Yeah, it is to me still too. Like I love it very much. But yeah, absolutely. I rely on the knowledge of my collaborator a lot. But yeah, so I was really lucky, and then I ended up kind of directing some work in Toronto. And then I ended up doing an MFA in creative writing with the University of Guelph. And so there my focus was playwriting. So that's when I really started writing my more like, I don't know, my less musical place.
Mm.
So that's what I started to do there. And that's, I've been focused a lot on that since then. And then also teaching. So I've been, I teach at Sheridan sometimes. I teach at Humber sometimes. I teach at Guelph sometimes. I teach at Western sometimes. So I'm lucky to have both of those things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fantastic.
And then now I'm doing a PhD. I guess I should say that too.
Yeah, yeah. How deep into it are you?
I am as close to the end as I'm almost there. I'm almost there, Garrett. I'm very
So cool.
close. Yeah.
I did I did my MA and that was it for I was like, there's no way I'm doing I could do I know everyone in my cohort was talking about applying to the PhDs and going for I was like, there's no way I'm exhausted. So good on you. That is yeah, it's a big accomplishment.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. It's a lot of work. I
Yeah.
mean, it seems like that's an obvious thing, but it really is.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
What is the focus of your PhD? I mean, that's such a hard thing to sum up, but
For me, it's actually really easy.
oh, cool.
It's the Blythe Festival.
Oh,
So the
really?
Blythe, yeah. So I'm looking at Blythe, and their mandate since the beginning has been uh, they're creating new Canadian work.
Mhm.
So my question is, according to Blythe, who is Canada? And that's really what
Cool.
I'm asking. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
really cool. Oh, I love that. Yeah,
Thanks.
amazing.
Yeah,
I that is very similar to some of the stuff that I remember being super excited by in York, like going over the development of like Past Marai and the early kind of Canadian identified work, and then seeing
yeah.
like where are we at now, and what does it mean to have work that is Canadian, and yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, I just find it really fascinating and like each chapter kind of focuses on a different equity milestone, I'm calling them.
Mm-hmm.
And so kind of asking questions about what does it mean to, represent people that you haven't represented before and how do you do that? And just asking
Mm-hmm.
all those kind of questions. Yeah.
Yeah, being in that world and doing that research, because I imagine you're at some point kind of tapping into some of the early past Mirai stuff, which is
Yeah.
that's always the benchmark I think of, like some of those early like farm show and things like that.
Mhm.
What is it? Is it interesting to be performing there right now in Toronto Fringe, like knowing that like rich history?
Yeah, I've always wanted to do something at Theater Pastoral. I love this space so much. There's just like you can feel the history
Yeah.
everywhere. It's really cool. And I love the backspace because, Corporate Finch is supposed to be in this factory, right? And the
Mhm.
backspace is this really kind of old, brick black walls and has the, kind of industrial feel to it. So it really like lends well to that. So
Yeah,
yeah, no, I love it there. It's great.
sure. Out of curiosity, which this is going to be relevant to almost no one else, but just because you were talking a little bit about the site specific stuff, were you doing the Ashley plays when you were at York?
Yeah.
I wasn't
Yeah.
amazing. Okay, I wasn't sure if that was how long those have been happening or anything, but that was like my first experience doing some site specific stuff. So that's super cool.
Me too. Me too. Yeah. That was my
Amazing.
first experience too. I remember, I don't know if you did the hall, the stairwell. I
Yes.
remember I was in the stairwell and I tried to deliver an Ashley monologue.
It's yeah, for people listening, it's I can't remember the exact prompt if there is one, but it's everyone is given a location around the university and then has to write a piece about someone named Ashley that can fit into that location. I think there's something else to the prompt that's a bit more focused, but I can't remember what it is right now.
Yeah, me neither, Garrett. That sounds pretty close to what I remember too.
Yeah, but it's a really interesting exercise, and it's one of my favorite things at York. And you kind of tour around and go through all those spaces. It's really a nice challenge as a writer to do that. Yeah, very cool. Okay, that's interesting to no one else except for me, but I'm glad I asked because I was just wondering.
I'm very interested. I would love to hear your Ashley play, Garrett.
Oh yeah, okay. We can talk a little bit about that afterwards. I'm curious. Yeah, I wonder how much overlap there is in people's Ashley plays. Um, but I going off to the side a little bit um, from this. I would love to hear a little bit about. Well, first of all, how big is your team? Because I know you and you have your two actors. Who else is all involved in your show?
Yeah, so we have an absolutely incredible fight director.
Oh, cool.
There's like, you know, things
Mhm.
get there's some hustling.
Yeah.
Um And so Jen D, who is absolutely incredible, has been working with us on
Hmm.
getting that put together. Uh, yeah, huge fan. And we have for the for the Toronto leg of things. Lindsay McDonald, who is our incredible stage manager, and Lindsay's putting together this like really useful book, like the Stage Manager
Yeah.
Bible, that we're
Hmm.
taking sort of around to all the other places. And Matt, who's one of the actors, is creating all of the sound design.
Cool.
So yeah, it's incredible. It's yeah, I can't wait for people to hear it. It's so good.
That's
And
great.
yeah, and then Dave DeGrow, this absolutely fabulous lighting designer who I've been friends with for a long time. Finally get to work with. He's created the lighting design, and there's like one really specific thing that he creates, and it's just so good. Like it's
Oh,
yeah, it's very like the review that I was talking about earlier talked about his lighting design and Matt's sound design. They both work really well together. It's really cool.
awesome.
And yeah, so we're trying to find ways of kind of adapting that as we go. And yeah, so those are the main folks in our team. Once we get up there, Territory Trand, who's an incredible artist who lives like North Bay way, who
Cool.
I've worked with before, she's going to be supporting us up there too. So really happy to be working with Terry on.
That's awesome. That's I'm from
Yeah.
North Bay, so that's very
Oh, are you? Oh,
yeah,
nice.
yeah, yeah. That's great. Um, that's yeah, it sounds like you have quite a team. That's amazing. I would love to. So I think one of the things that I really wanted to delve into chatting with you is I'm sure people watching at this point, knowing what fringe festivals are, know that there is a vibrant scene of independent theater, um, but even they might not quite know like what that looks like versus like a traditional like big budget like Mervish style show. Like what has been the kind of I'd love for you to walk us through the journey of like assembling the team, and then
Yeah.
what did the rehearsal process look like, and all of that.
Sure. Yeah, happy to.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, a big part of my job in a lot of ways is to make sure that we have the support that we need, that we can get what we need so that everybody is able to be supported and paid as we go along. And yeah, so as soon as I knew that we probably wanted to turn what we did in December into something else in the summer, that was my first thought. I'm like, okay, I need to know who I can bring on
Yeah.
based on funding.
Hmm.
So that was me writing grants. So if I'm not writing a play, I'm writing a grant,
Yeah.
really is my other
Oh yeah.
job. Yeah. So I write grants all the time. So I've for this project, we've secured funding from the Ontario Arts Council, and that was recommended by two theater companies. So these are theater recommender grants
Cool.
where you apply to the company themselves, and then they make that recommendation on to the OAC, Ontario Arts Council. And
Which
then that's
which companies, just out of curiosity?
so Blythe, the Blythe Theater Festival,
Yeah.
and Theater Gargantua in
Oh,
Toronto.
Gargantua. Cool. Very cool.
Yeah, yeah, no, I'm so grateful to both their support. It means a lot, right? When you get those yeses and you're like,
Yeah.
okay,
Oh, I
great,
know.
I'm doing
Yeah.
something right. Okay, these
Hmm.
people are supporting me. And I'm really lucky to have those folks on. I just think of them as on my team, as part of the team. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
as a quick interjection for anyone uh, listening that is remotely curious about kind of, stepping into doing some theater and a little bit interested in doing some grant writing. The recommender grants are that's how I started out doing grants as well. They're an amazing first step into like getting involved in theater, and they're like great, no strings attached funding for your pieces. So many different companies with different mandates are involved. Definitely look into the recommender grants. They're so great. There's yeah.
Yeah. And you can think about them as starting, well, if you don't already have a relationship with that company, but starting that relationship too. If they want to support
Exactly.
what you're doing, then, it's a great way to connect with them too. I'm really lucky to have worked with both of those companies before. And
Yeah, and there's a few
yeah,
recommender grants with Northern initiatives as well. You know,
cool.
Sudbury Theater Center used to do them. Pat the Dog does them. So if anyone's in the Sioux, they need more Northern artists, and they're giving away money. So apply.
Yeah, you should definitely apply
Yeah,
and follow up and talk to people.
exactly.
It's, yeah. Um, Yeah, so those grants are really key. And then I also have a grant from the Waterloo Region Arts Fund.
Cool.
So they're supporting us too. So because of that, it's nice to know, okay, I have this like pot of money. I
Mhm.
know that that's where I'm gonna start. You still have to think about ticket sales and all of those things
Yeah.
too. But it's just really nice to know that I can pay the folks that
Mhm.
you know, and so then I was making sure that Rainbow and Matt were involved and that they understood everything. So a lot of it was me kind of organizing the structure of what we were going to be doing, our schedules,
Mhm.
I guess. And then after that, once I had like everything sort of confirmed, then I brought on everybody else. I just sort of put feelers out to them as I was applying for these grants to say, hey, if I get this grant, can you be involved in this?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so that was part of the process. And besides, yeah, and so just really lucky
And have
to
you
get to
worked
work
with
with folks.
a lot of them previously? Is that how you had that connection, or like you?
It's funny, like I haven't actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I just connections through people. Dave DeGrow and I have known each other for a long time. When I first worked at the Fringe, like 10 years ago now, he
Cool.
was a tech at the Fringe and I was running the front of house and we knew each other that way. But we'd never worked together.
Hmm.
And um and yeah, Jen, the fight director, was recommended to me by somebody I was teaching with last year, and just this really great actor that I trusted a lot, and said, "Yeah, great. I'd love to thank you for making this recommendation."
Yeah.
And yeah, it just sort of happened like that. And yeah, and so I guess that was the big thing. Then trying to schedule everything and get everything kind of organized before
Hmm.
then starting to think about, marketing and um how to put together sort of the story of what you're doing so that people can understand. I really think of like grant writing and marketing and all these things. I know this sounds this is really how I think about it. It's really storytelling. You're
Hmm.
trying to tell people the
Yeah.
story of what you're about to do. And you have to kind of get people to understand how they can be involved in that story.
100%.
Yeah. So
Yeah. No, I
that's
completely agree with you. Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And then what did the actual like rehearsal process working with the actors look like? Where, not like address wise, but where were you rehearsing? Like what did that look like? Did you have a good like theater, or were you in a little studio? Or I know there's a lot of great spaces in Toronto and people are all over doing rehearsals for Toronto Fringe. And
Yeah. Um, well, like Rainbow's from Temagami, right?
yeah.
And Matt is from East York, and I live in Cambridge, Ontario. So we actually live very far away from each other.
Right.
So trying to figure out sort of how we were going to navigate that was a big part of the puzzle. And we decided that the best thing to do, they're both recent graduates from the University of Guelph. That's where I'm doing my PhD. And so very lucky to get the space donated by the University of Guelph for
Oh,
our rehearsals. Yeah, amazing. And so we got to use this. They just built this really nice new theater and a couple of studios just off.
cool.
And so we got to use one of those, which was, yeah, it was just really lucky to be able to do that.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think that that's going to be such a barrier to doing this kind of work, is to actually getting somewhere to rehearse. But
Yeah.
there are so many places. If you're a university alumni, that's we rehearse at York still. I'm not a student there, but that's
Yeah.
still our home for rehearsals. It's great. It's really nice. Um, yeah, the a lot of people are often willing to help out, not even just studio wise, but with anything like the to to be successful doing this type of work, you have to make those asks, and a lot of times people are wanting to support the arts, which is really nice.
Yeah, I think so. It's
Yeah.
people like to feel like they're involved in what you're doing and they want to be a part of your community. And so, yeah, it's a way to connect with the folks around you. Like our first rehearsals, I was teaching at the University of Waterloo at that time, and the University of Waterloo donated space, right? So, yeah, just having that kind of support is really, really key. Obviously, that's not accessible to everyone.
Mhm.
So, there's a lot of um I think that's important to note,
Yeah,
right? Yeah. So, just like I think local libraries really want to
libraries are
support
fantastic.
folks, absolutely. And then there's a lot of like not-for-profit organizations in community that have space that don't really think about how it could potentially be used. And so you can just ask. Like I've done that before when
Yeah.
I wasn't, very privileged to be working at a university. I would just sort of go and ask and say, hey, do you have this room that we can use? And you'd be surprised how many times people say yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I know people that have worked out of like warehouses and things like that all the time. Like, someone did like an auto body shop that had a big area that, yeah, they would never have thought to do that, but they were like, of course, yeah, absolutely, we're not using it. And there you go. That's great. So yeah, sometimes you gotta think a little bit outside of the box. And worst case, I have done plenty of rehearsals in like parking lots and stuff like that. There's nothing
Yeah, me
wrong with
too. A park in the summer,
that. Oh
like
yeah,
it's actually
exactly.
really nice. Yeah.
It is. Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, amazing. And I'd love to know in doing this process, what has been the biggest hurdle or roadblock that you've had to kind of overcome?
Well, I've never really tried to organize a tour like this before. So that
Yeah.
was a bit of a learning curve for me. Just sort of figuring out what I needed to think about, right? And what I
Mm.
needed to make sure that I had for folks. And, you know, really just being clear in how I was going to make that happen. Yeah, I think that was my biggest thing.
Yeah.
Just thinking about how do you organize a tour? That was my big question. But I feel like we're getting there. We're sort of figuring it out, and I'm really excited to bring this show to the zoo.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we're really looking forward to having you, of course. Um, yeah, the tour thing is always uh it's interesting. We've done it on very low budget before and had to like kind of cram everyone into a car and drive up. That's the classic. We were fortunate enough to have some funding last year to fly out to PEI, but we were ready to drive and
Oh
camp,
wow.
and like that's sometimes that's what you got to do. But that's sort of the world of doing this kind of indie theater fringe circuit type work, but it's
Yeah.
fun.
It is fun.
Yeah,
There's a lot of freedom with it too. Like
there
when you're
is.
working with organizations, it's another sort of beautiful thing, but it's very much, in this indie world, there's a lot of freedom. You can kind of do what you want.
There is. Yeah, we
Yeah.
were we were sitting in the parking garage outside the venue at our show tonight, and we had to transport a table, and it was all taken apart like an IKEA table. So we were sitting in the middle of the parking garage, like putting it together the table, and we're like, "This is so like this is the best kickoff to Fringe. We're ready. This is it." There's always something like that. You're just like, "What are we doing
Yeah.
now?"
I know. I realized yesterday before the show, I'm needing band-aids at one point. I'm like, oh, I need to go find band-aids. I'm like
Yeah.
running to go find, Shoppers Drug Mart and like pricing out band-aids.
Shoppers is a lifesaver. We had to run and grab a Tim Hortons cup today before the show, and then also went to the Tim Hortons, then we went to this is the most Canadian indie theater thing I can think. We'd run over to the Tim's, grab a cup, and then run to the Shoppers, and we grabbed like a magazine prop that we needed. Is yeah, for sure. That's great. Um, yeah. I I'm just I'm noticing the time. I'm trying to think of the a good like all encapsulating type final question, but I guess just to kind of wrap up, what advice can you give someone that's like totally fresh coming into it, overwhelmed by the idea of like because there's a lot of components to it,
Yeah.
but if someone just like has, let's say, I think uh, just judging by the fact that we came through the same program, you and I are probably similar in the way that we were writers first and kind of had to like develop into all around producers doing all this other stuff. So
Yeah.
let's say someone in a similar position, they have a story, they know
Mhm.
they want it on stage. What is the advice that you give to kind of, you know, make that happen?
I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you can go, right? Like, so there's a lot of different things that you can do with it. But I think ultimately you got to just listen to yourself. Like, what do you want, right? Do you want this thing to, like, I did a play in a hallway once, and it seemed like a really, it was not an easy thing to organize. It was this busy hallway that was used by this arts organization all the time. And we came into a lot of problems with that. But ultimately, you just have to decide, like, this is what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So then talk to people that have done it before. So if you want to do something like go to the Fringe and you want to develop a show there, and it's really important to you maybe that you bring people from your community there. Great. Talk to people that are really good at that. There's
Yeah.
so many people that are good at sort of working with community and getting folks engaged with community. If you're more interested in, taking a story somewhere else and, really trying to take who you are and bring it to other communities, then you'd be surprised how many times, just reaching out to people from other places and saying, "Hey, I'm an artist. I really want to work in this community in some way."
Mm-hmm.
Just those initial emails that can, seem very terrifying, just send them. Just send those emails. Say, "Hey, this is something I want to do. I see that you're doing X, Y, and Z. Can we talk?" And I think that's a really like important place to start. Figure out what you want, like what you actually want, and then talk to somebody who's done it before.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic advice. Uh, it really is. That's the biggest resource that you can have working in theater is other artists, 100%.
Yeah.
So yeah, make those connections, send those emails. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. That's yeah. Um, Before we wrap up, where if someone is in Toronto right now or willing to schlep up here, then where can they see your show and when? If you know,
Um,
it's a big ask. There's probably like six more shows left, but
yeah, so we have 8 shows. So
eight.
we had our first one on Wednesday and we have 7 more shows until the 16th.
Right.
So if you're in Toronto, come on down. We're at Theatre Pastoral Backspace, which is right at like Queen and Bathurst. And there's really cool theater there. And there's a bunch of other plays that are happening at Theatre Pastoral. And there's a bunch more that are happening at Factory Theater just down the street too. So it's a really great hub. If you're into theater, that's a great place to get to know in Toronto, just in general. But yeah, come on down. We'd love to have you. Come get a little scare, a little summer scare with Corporate Finch.
I love it. I'm definitely gonna try to make it. I mean, I'll see it in the soup, but I would really
Yeah.
love to be able to come while I'm here. Um,
And I want to see your show too, Garrett. It sounds
Yeah, oh, thank
amazing.
you. Yeah, yeah. We're at if anyone is in Toronto, I'll plug ours too. We're at the Aki Studio in Native Earth, which is such a beautiful theater space that we're able to perform in. Um, yeah, there's I think over 100 shows right now going on in Toronto. So if you love theater, this is the time to be in Toronto
It really
and
is.
see all of these artists with similar stories producing their you know these projects that they've been working on for probably a while, and finally able to get up on a stage. So that's
Yeah,
it's a really great time to be an artist in the city right now. It's buzzing with creative energy. It's great.
it
um,
really
is there
is.
anywhere people can find you on social media?
Yeah, I have all the social medias. Port Albert Productions is the company that I'm using to take Corporate Finch on the tour. So please feel free to follow Port Albert Productions. But I also have my own. It's Taylor Marie Graham. So feel free to find me there too.
Great, amazing. And is there anything else you want to plug?
Well, I mean, if you're in Stratford this summer and you want to go to a children's opera, I have that going on too. It's called Frog Song. It starts at the end of July.
I definitely do. I will. I'm gonna see if I can make it to that as well. That sounds like so much fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be
I've
great. We
I've never
start
been to
rehearsals
any
tomorrow.
opera, let alone a children's opera. But
Yep.
I'm all in. That sounds fantastic.
It's very accessible, where it's for
Cool.
children, right? So yeah,
Yeah,
come on down.
awesome. All right, so come join me. We'll take a Fringe North trip to for whoever's listening can take a Fringe North trip and see. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in tonight, for joining us. Merci, miigwech, gracias. And just a reminder that Fringe North 2023 will be from August 16th to the 20th. And you can check out our website and all our social media channels, which are in the description below. That's going to have all the information you need about the festival. And if you want to support the work that our team is doing here, you can consider tipping the Fringe. And you can find a link for that in the description as well. We will be back next Thursday evening for another live stream. Um, we're looking forward to seeing you then. Thank you so much, Taylor, for being here. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.